Hey, everybody, welcome to the official Do Good Better podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Kirby. And of course, we bring on guests to talk about all the important things that our small and medium-sized nonprofits need to do good better. I've been thinking a lot about communication lately, right? It's the end of the year coming up. It is full of Christmas cards and Thanksgiving gifts and blah, blah, blah. What are you doing with your donors? Are you doing too much? Are you doing too little? What are you not needing to do? What do you desperately need to do? All these questions are probably confusing the living daylights out of you if you are a nonprofit leader trying to figure out your way in the world. So I did something that normally I wouldn't do. I reached out to someone that I'm kind of a fangirl for. I've been following this individual and our guest today for like an exceedingly long period of time, slowly stalking him and everything that he writes. And I think we're going to talk about communication today, because I'm sure you have a lot of fan people at your organization doing the same thing. How do you encourage them to be me, to reach out to you, to start? We're going to talk about it today. Ephraim Gopin, he is our guest today, and he joins me here on the official Do Good Better podcast. Ephraim, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Thanks very, very much for having me, Patrick. Appreciate it. I'm
very excited to have you on. As you are self-declared the grand poobah of all things nonprofits. But first, we're going to get into these things. Not only communication experts, not only a fundraising expert, but we're going to get into all of it. But if somebody's kind of tuning into iTunes or they're on YouTube or whatever, and they find that this is a topic that they need to desperately listen to, but they have no idea who you are, give the people what they want. Who are you? What you do? And why are we talking about it?
I am a 2-decade nonprofiteer. I've done everything from CEO on down. That includes fundraising and grant writing and event directing and an alumni director and communications and marketing. And I did mention I was a CEO. I will, as all your listeners in the nonprofit world, I wore multiple hats at every job I've ever been at. It was never one or the other. And the one interesting experience I had was I had a chance to work on the other side of the table. I worked for 3 years as the global communications director for a global family foundation. I went from asking to giving, although I had nothing to do with giving out the money, but I was on that side of the table, and that gave me a little bit of a different perspective on how the other half lives. So I've had that experience as well. I also have some high tech and business experience to throw in there. And see how things worked in the business world. And today I'm the founder of my own agency, 1832 Communications, where we make sure that your nonprofit fundraising and marketing are always working together in tandem and not in silos, as often is the case. And the goal is to help you build more relationships, raise more money, service more people, have more impact in your community. It's all about doing more.
See, doesn't that sound like something you would want, listener? Of course it is. You neglected to tell one very important thing, that you send an email every single morning called the Daily Dose of Nonprofit, and something that I have siphoned off material from forever. And I had sort of like, I get smarter in the morning knowing that I have this thing waiting in my inbox with links and things. And we will put that in the show notes. So make sure that you sign up, because you need to get this into your email. And then you'll eventually see, what I'm referencing for the day, or things that we're not paying attention to because you've got horse blinders on. This gives you a real good perspective of what other people are doing in the industry from leaders across the globe. And it's just it's a wonderful thing. Go and sign up after you listen to this podcast. It's awesome. Okay. So let's talk about communication, because that's kind of where I think I really want to talk about today, right? We're at the end of the year. We're talking about end of year appeals and campaigns and how do you communicate with your donors. Let's talk email. Just start off with an email. People's email lists are wonky. They don't know what to send and when to send it. They are confused by 7,000 different people telling them 7,000 different things. Their board's probably like, what's our return rate? And what do we have for content? It's confusing. So if you're a nonprofit and you are looking at a blank slate for 2022, what are some of the things that we want to consider or we want to think about while building out a communication campaign email-wise?
All right. So first of all, the most important thing to know is that email communication is one-to-one communication. It's personal. And that's how you build relationships, strengthen connections, and of course, eventually convert subscribers into donors. So that one-to-one communication is where it all begins. And you have to treat it as such, as opposed to just some mass communication tool like an ad during the Super Bowl. It's not. And so taking from that, each individual subscriber is different. You have your monthly donors, you have staff and volunteers, you have annual givers, you have new subscribers who aren't donors yet, but you want to move them in that direction, which means that you want to look at your list, not as this big list of 10,000 email addresses, but you want to figure out and put them into buckets and say, if I have an announcement to make, or I want to get something across to them, or I want to raise awareness or educate my subscribers, well, I may do that differently for monthly donors than people who don't know anything about the organization. Monthly donors are already clearly committed to the cause. They know about it enough. Even if they're giving only $5 a month, it doesn't matter. They've signed on to give every single month because your cause is important to them. Use your emails in the same way. Don't intro them to something they already know about. That's a waste of an email, and you've lost a chance to build a relationship and connect with them. So we'll start with that. The second thing, because you mentioned it, goes to your actual list. And this is something that I'm very big on. So you had mentioned earlier my daily newsletter. I monthly go in and just cull my list. I go through it and I see who's not opening or who's not clicking. If you have people who haven't opened your email in 3 months, get them off your list. They're not interested. And that's, it could be, I know some of you send it weekly or bi-weekly or monthly, whatever it is. If they haven't opened in 3-4 months, take them off your list. Sending out emails to people who don't want them does 2 things. One, it pisses them off, okay? Because now things are coming to their inbox that they don't want. Now, the fact is they could just unsubscribe. But sometimes, my inbox just looks like a nuclear disaster zone. And so I can't just go into every single one and unsubscribe. But at some point, it comes in at 6 a.m. when they're waking up and they're looking at the email, oh God, from them. So you don't want to be that guy. That's the first thing. The second thing is it hurts you with your email provider. For example, Gmail or Outlook, okay? If you're sending a ton of emails to Gmail addresses and a very high percentage of them aren't being opened, Gmail may assume your email is spam and will stop sending to all Gmail addresses across the board. So your goal is to take your list and get rid of people. And when I say get rid of, you can do these campaigns to see if you can get them back into the fold. But in general, you want to take them off your list. And I know that that's hard for nonprofit staff because the board says, well, how big is our list? And you say 7,000. And then in January, when you actually do this, you come back and you go, well, it's actually 4,000. And the board looks at you and goes, whoa, what just happened to those 3,000? The board is interested only in numbers. Email is not a numbers game. Email is a relationship game. Email is a communications game. Email is a fundraising and marketing tool. It's a storytelling tool, and you should be using it that way. If somebody's not interested, stop emailing them. Full stop. I'll add one other thing that's related to this. So I said, people who haven't opened it. However, the board then says, okay, we have 4,000 people. Give us a little bit of data about those people on the list. Open rate is fool's gold. Do not look at open rate as a measure of success or failure. And I'll get to that in a second. What do you want to look at? Click-through rate is the first thing. How many people are clicking on your call to action and going, let's just say, to your website? Are you moving eyeballs to your website? Get traffic to your site. I'd also suggest that it doesn't end with an email. If your nonprofit sends me an email with a call to action, and then I go to your website, what happens when I get to that landing page? How much time do I spend on that page? Because if it's 5 seconds, the landing page wasn't great. If it's a minute, oh, clearly people are reading it. And then conversions on that page. Did I fill out a form? Did I sign up to volunteer? Did I register for an event? Did I donate? Did I download an ebook? Think of all the different forms you have on your site and actions you want me to take. So click-through rate and conversions on the website are what you should be looking at. Open rate is fool's gold. You could have a lot of people opening your emails, but if they're not clicking through, not worth a lot. Yes, it's worth something because they're still reading or skimming and they're seeing what you're up to, but it may not be worth as much as you think it is. And, I don't want to get too deep into the wickets here, but Apple's new privacy, what do you call it? What they're doing now with privacy and allowing people to opt out of telling you that they've opened up an email, just to make it real simple. Your open rate actually may not even matter, because you'll never know actually if a person really did open that email or not. So yes, you have to look at open rate to kind of get rid of people on your list, but as a measure of success, go to the board and say, we have this many people and our click-through rate is this. It's much higher than the average. We're doing well. We're converting on our website. That's how you measure success with email.
And it's the same thing if you were talking about fundraising in person, because you're going to tell your story to as many people as possible. From the many people as possible, you're going to get a small group of those people who are going to say, I like what you do enough that either I'm going to ask for more information or I'm going to give you a small gift. And that's the goal. The goal is not to give speeches to 10,000 people every single day. It's to have real good conversations one-on-one with people who have high capacity to give you a lot of gifts. That's essentially what you're doing with your email. So if you put that perspective on it, yes, it exactly makes sense, right? You're not going to be sort of talking to people who have no interest in listening to you. You're trying to eliminate that from your playbook, because it's a waste of time audibly. It's a waste of time having coffees with people who don't give a rat's behind what you do as an organization. So why on earth are you wasting that in the email thing? I love that. And I love the perspective. Like, this email should be one-to-one. How important then is it then to have a perspective from being authentic? How important is it to be an authentic communicator on email, rather than just like corporate says, I need to say this.
Yeah, I'm going to say something which none of you can say to your board. 2 words: screw corporate. And let me explain what I mean with that. Again, the board, and I want to say, I'm not generalizing. Every board is different, but a lot of board members may not have prior nonprofit experience. They may not know what works in fundraising, storytelling, and marketing. You are the professional who knows. It is your job to explain to the board and educate them about what works and what doesn't. So when it comes to email and storytelling, I'm not looking to BS around. I'm looking to put it in front of people and say, there's a problem. You can have an impact on this person specifically. I call it tell the story of one. Don't tell me there's 10,000 people who need clothes. Give me the story of Ashley, who is a survivor, or is a victim of domestic abuse, thrown out of her house, and now needs clothes, needs shelter, needs food. Her kids need backpacks to take to school. You could think whatever niche you're in, it doesn't matter. Tell me the story of one via email, and then say, let the donor know, how can you solve it? Click here, donate. Click here, attend an event. Click here, volunteer to, tutor kids, whatever it is. Be authentic. If you're not being your authentic self, when push comes to shove and a donor visits one of your centers, or a donor wants information, now you're going to have to try and figure out, well, what the hell did I tell them the first time? Ooh, I better make sure I stick to the same story. Don't do that. Don't do that. So I understand corporate speak. I've done time in high tech in the business world. I get it. But when it comes to, and you said this before, when it comes to fundraising and you're doing one-to-one talks, if you're having coffee with somebody, BSing around is not going to move the needle. What moves the needle? Authentic, transparent, say it like it is, and tell that person you are a do-gooder. You're going to be part of a community of do-gooders. You're going to solve a problem in your community. Here's how. Full stop.
The other thing too is that I think if somebody said, you're exactly who I thought you were, or you're exactly the organization that you read, isn't that a better connection than like, okay, now I'm trying to figure out what on earth you do because I thought you did this. It's like telling that one white lie and then you got to remember it forever. And then you're like, oh, boy, if I said I went to that concert back in 1996, I better still like remember that I went to that concert, because that's what people know you for, like the person that went to whatever. That's a lot easier. And it's a lot less stressful to say what you mean and then just act on it. I mean, that's the ultimate. And again, what you're trying to do is you're trying to bond with people in that one-on-one conversations to match what their affinity is, rather than this made-up thing that you're trying to force feed yourself, right? You're not trying, if somebody says, well, I want to help kids and homelessness in kids, and you're a group that maybe provides food for somebody. Well, they weren't interested in food; they're interested in shelter, right? So you may have gotten the meeting, you may have gotten the thing, and instead of trying to figure out how can I finagle this so that their desire to help, shelter people is aligned with what we're doing, say to them, listen, we're not a great fit, but I know who is. Who else you know of that would be interested in maybe food scarcity? That's a way better approach, because now they appreciate your honesty. They appreciate the time saved. Same thing when you're flipping through emails.
No, 100%. Listen, say what you mean what you say. Fundraising, this comes down to something just simple and fundamental. Fundraising is not about the money. It's about building relationships and finding those shared values. Find those shared values and then run with it. And if the person, like you said, if the person doesn't have it, refer them to where they can make the most impact in the community. I go back to the business model. All of you listening have seen ads which praise a service or a product from here to Mars. Okay. And then you order it and you realize, it wasn't what I was expecting. I prefer honesty in my ads. Tell me, I saw an ad yesterday. I don't remember the product, unfortunately, but the ad said, and it was full large print, this is going to be difficult to put on, but once it's on, you will tell the difference. And it was posted as, would you do this in marketing? And I was like, oh, that's different, because at least they're already meeting a pain point. People are going to be complaining to them. This is difficult as a product, whatever it was, clothes or whatever it was to put on. But as soon as it's on, it's the best thing out there. So meet that pain point, right? That's truth in advertising. I'd rather with email, direct mail, annual reports, any fundraising and marketing materials you're putting out, be honest. You don't have to be brutally honest, but that brings me also to failures. Should you tell people about failures, communicate them? And my answer is yes. Yes, don't hide them. We all make mistakes. We all fail. We are not perfect. Well, I mean, Patrick, you might be, but I'm not. Okay, I'll just talk for myself. I'm not. Tell me about failures, because I want to hear about them. What did you learn, and how are you going to get better? Mm-hmm. So honesty is always the best. My parents, right? I go back to what my parents taught me. Honesty is always the best policy. And even if I didn't agree with them as a kid necessarily when I was taking extra cookies from the jar, but fact is, honesty is the best policy. They were right.
And a mistake thing is the more relatable. Nobody wins all the time, right? So like if you in your life continuously see wins over and over and over again, you're like, this group can't lose. It's relatable to say, we messed up, we didn't reach our goal, we didn't accomplish this, but that doesn't stop us from wanting to continue our mission, do our work, etc. And then we need your help to get there. Okay. Absolutely. I'm more relatable now than I was about, hey, we did it again. Hey, we did it again. Hey, we did it. You're not supposed to stop cheerleading, but that honesty in the struggle and the relatability you have in the general public who is on a daily basis struggling with something is a lot more interesting to click on than it is to constantly win. I think that's another thing leads me to, and we talk about this all the time on the podcast, that third-party endorsement is exponentially more important than first-party solicitation, always. Now, that goes negative and positive. So if you are promoting something and you're not authentic and you're not honest, somebody's going to call you out on it. And then somebody's going to be empowered to call you out on that again. But those that do see your authentic self and understand the value of your organization and who love it are going to talk about it constantly. And that's how you grow your donor list. That's how you grow your the way that people perceive you in the fundraising world and from a programs and services community.
100%. And I'll just use a quick story from my personal experience. When I was a fundraiser and grant writer, this goes back a little bit over a decade. And we had applied for a very large grant from a very large funder, a very large foundation, and we got it. And about 3 weeks after we got it, we realized we can't run this program. And for whatever reason, and internally, well, what the hell do we do now? We've got all this money in the bank. I said, this isn't a question. We called the person, the director of the foundation, who was our liaison, and we had a meeting with them. And I put it out there on the table and I said, here's the deal. We can't run this. We have a couple of options. We can, with your permission, move the money to a different program that we know we're already running and can run, or B, we'll return the money and apply next year. we kept the money and we ran it to a different program. They appreciated that we didn't try and screw around with them and fool around with their money.
Mhm.
Your grant funders, your corporate partners, your monthly givers, your annual givers, your major givers, mid-size, I don't care what they are. Honesty is going to be the best policy in terms of telling them what's going on with your organization, how they're helping. And if something gets messed up, yeah, it gets messed up and you have to own it, apologize for it, and say, here's how we're going to get better.
Mhm. Unsubscribers and those that we scrub from our lists, what are some tactics that we can do to approach them? Is it worth our time to take an unsubscriber and ask them as a follow-up, either conversation or an email to say, curious to see why you left, just to understand our list better? Or is it just move on, get another name, and continue?
Okay, so I would start with what does your organization do with donors who lapse? Okay, lapse donors, what do you do? Do you just let them lapse? Well, that would explain the current retention rate in the sector, which is only 45%. Acquisition costs more than retention. So why isn't the retention rate higher? It's because a donor doesn't give this year and we don't have time to chase them. And I'm like, no. They gave in the past. That's who you want to be chasing because it'll cost you less time and money and effort to get them to give again. So what does your organization do with lapsed donors? It's the same with lapsed subscribers. This is an issue of people power. This is an issue of time. You can automate it where if somebody is lapsed in terms of opening emails or clicking through, you can send them an email, one of those nice emails. I get them every now and then. Hey, we see you haven't, clicked or anything. Is it us? Maybe it's us. What can we do to make your email better? Meaning your email experience better. Are there stories that we're not providing that you'd like to see? Is there content you'd like, more content of X that you want? Get their opinion. Ask them what they want. Don't just decide what your readers want. This is the same as donations. Don't decide that a person can give $5,000 when really they're going to give you $20 a month. Don't necessarily decide for them. The same goes. So yes, I am not, but this is a personal thing. I'm not a big fan of going after unsubscribes. Okay, if you unsubscribed, you had your reasons, I'll deal with it. Now, I can tell you when I started my daily newsletter, and we're recording this, I don't even know what day it is. It's somewhere at the beginning of November. I'm about to hit a big milestone in terms of editions with my newsletter. I can tell you that at the beginning, unsubscribes kind of bugged me. Like, what the hell? But I understood also, A, it's a daily newsletter. B, their email is full. Okay, it's not personal. And so when I started looking at the reasons why they're no longer, subscribing, it's no reason given or no longer interested, which is fine, or I'm moving jobs, so I can't subscribe from this, business email, as it were. Should you go after unsubscribes? The answer is yes and no, and I don't have an exact answer. A lot of people don't want to hear from you again, and some people you can actually get back in. These kinds of campaigns, businesses do it all the time. They do it all the time to try and get you back. Does your nonprofit have time to deal with them? Does your nonprofit, you can automate these things, but at some point you still have to one-to-one. Mm-hmm. And the question is if you have time or not. If you're a small nonprofit, I say leave it. You've got, work on retaining what you have. If they're a lapsed subscriber, it hurts, it sucks, move on.
Talk about a milestone with subscribers. I think one of the big questions that especially small and medium-sized nonprofits has is, how in the hell do I get names onto my list? What tactics can we use? And we've got a finite amount of supporters. We have a very niche, thing that we do. We want to tell our story to more people. We want to engage them online, but I've got a stagnant thing that I am doing that I have no idea where to even begin to look for names. How on earth do we do it? And how do we become, the Ephraim Gopin of nonprofit, small, medium-sized mailing lists?
You just made an assumption that my mailing list has millions on it, but that's not yet anyway.
We're gonna start there, and then that assumption, like, well, I got to get on this list, right? I mean, that's
obviously. Obviously, let's start with something as simple as quality versus quantity. Again, this goes back to what I said earlier about the board. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say it: screw quantity and praise quality. If I have a small list of 100, but they are energized and involved and mobilized to take action, and they are raising awareness, advocating, being educated, donating, volunteering, you name it, what could be bad about that? I hate working with the nonprofits, not hate work. That's a bad sentence. Let me start that again. I dislike looking at a nonprofit's email list, which has 10,000 names on it, because we've been compiling this list for 15 years. And then when I actually go to look at who's opening, who's clicking, it's 10% of the list. And I'm like, guys, A, you're paying money for all these subscribers, depending on which email service provider you're using. So it's costing you money. It's not being opened, which costs you in issues of spam with Gmail, Outlook, and the others. I said, you're not helping yourself. So first of all, it's a quality issue. Number two, how do you get more people? Number one, if you have an online donation form, put a checkbox there. Absolutely. And the checkbox, there's a couple things to know. One, make sure it's always opt-in, meaning make me check the box that I want to subscribe to your newsletter. Number two, make sure you tell people what they're getting in that newsletter. Don't just say, sign me up or stay in touch. No, tell me what I'm getting. Okay, the American Cancer Society, for example, on their website, their call to action is receive updates to learn how to end cancer. That's the first thing. And I'm like, I'm signing up. We all want to end cancer, right? We all have, unfortunately, friends or family members who have it, are survivors who have passed away from it. And then they add to their call to action, you can receive health updates and research data, which is a big deal, because I want to know how close are we data-wise in studies to finding a cure. And then health updates. Yeah, I don't want to get cancer. Tell me what foods to eat, what not to eat, what's healthy living. Yeah, that's what you want. So on your donation form, that's the first page. That's the first place that you should be placing an opt-in for it. Number two, look at your donor list. When they signed up to give a donation, odds are they gave their email address. There's no reason you shouldn't be sending them an intro email saying, would you like to learn more about us and sign up for our newsletter? That's another campaign you could, that's low-hanging fruit, guys. And the last one that I will say is this, and this is, I'm going to do the, a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? I wrote an ebook about this. You can find it on my site. It tells you how to onboard new subscribers via your website. And I'll make this real simple. Your website is your window to the world. That's where people go when they first want to learn about you. And so what you want to do is you want to have a subscription sign up form banner type thing on every single page of your website. Because I don't just go to your homepage. I'll go to your About Us page, or I may find a link to your programs or a gallery of pictures from your latest event, whatever it is. I got to your website somehow. Have a sign up form on the website. Give me a good call to action. Sign up. Your website is going to potentially bring you quite a lot of signups. That's a big one. So, there is also, by the way, direct mail. Direct mail, because a lot of times, here we are before end of year appeals, all of your reply cards are going to say, if you want to donate online, here's the address, right? Your direct mail is just driving traffic to your website to anybody who wants to give credit card online. And there it is on your online form. So there's no, you can include it in a annual report, sign up to stop getting annual reports in the mail. You can now get it. We give our monthly reports on email or whatever it is. You have avenues, use them all. Get people signed up on email.
In addition to having a link to that ebook, which I think everybody should download, because I think that's such an important thing. That what's your first impression when people come to sign up for an email? If the first thing that they get is a give me money, give me money, give me money.
Oh God, no.
Unsubscribe, now you're out. So listen to what he says. Download the book. Go read all about it, because I think it's going to give you a path. And if you can't do all the things, do the first couple, because that'll help you sort of mentally prepare for how somebody, and again, think about it from how you get onboarded for things that you sign up. What's annoying? What's great? What's fun? What's interesting? Those are the kind of things that you should be thinking about. As am I the annoying organization, or am I the entertainment plus education thing? That am I balancing the two? Which leads me to an interesting question is, and the other thing that we're going to put on our show notes too is a link to sign up to your daily dose of nonprofit stuff. Every email that you send out, because it's so important to get not only the information but how it's arranged. what you do wonderfully is very clickable, very easy to skim through. Is there anything that I'm really interested in doing? I, on the other hand, write like War and Peace novels once a week, just because I get something under my ass and I need to talk about it. I'll put some entertaining pieces in there, and I will add memes galore. But I just do once a week, sort of like long form things that sort of lead to a bunch of links. It's just kind of my style. I like kind of writing about that. It gets it off my chest, and I get to use that in sort of some of the content pieces I distribute throughout the week. That's just me. But what you need to concentrate is get on this daily dose of nonprofit, because of the amount of links that are clickable and interesting and connected. So that leads me to my question is, what sort of tips can you give the nonprofits to make something unique or interesting to include in their email that's clickable, that's also calls to action?
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to tell you is don't do like me. Okay, I'm putting in my daily email 5 to 6 different links, but that's because I'm bringing different types of nonprofit information to the table. Your nonprofit needs to keep the following in mind. Number one, people on average skim emails for 5 to 10 seconds. So if you're writing War and Peace, and no offense, Patrick, if you're writing War and Peace, they're basically skimming. And if they see that they have to scroll for a very long time, they're out. They're going to bounce. They won't even click on anything. So I usually say, do the opposite of a fundraising direct mail appeal. We know from data, direct mail appeals, 4 pages beats 2 pages, 8 pages beats 4 pages. The longer the letter, the better it's going to do. Email is not that. Email is almost the shorter, the better, and the more skimmable, the better. So you're going to have a couple of things. I like to use, in general, a 1, 2, 3 model. At the top, a hero image, which captures attention, a great picture. Below it, the verbiage, whatever your message is. Below that, the call to action. 1, 2, 3, real simple. So if you have you have your end of year campaign coming up, you have an event, 1, 2, 3. Don't include also 13 other things. Like I get newsletters, from certain very large organizations, and they try to throw in 9 or 10 different things into one newsletter. It may work for certain people, but for a lot of people who are skimming, when there's just too much and it's information overload, they're going to bounce. And that's what you want to avoid. So if you're a nonprofit, and let's just say you're doing your monthly update, no more than 3 things, no more. And if you can get it down to 1, that's great. But let's say you have 3 updates that you want, put in short amount of verbiage about each one, click, send them to your website to learn more. If you're doing an event or a fundraising campaign, that should be the only thing in the email, nothing else. Do not take away attention from the main call to action, which is donate, attend this event, register now. That's all you want. Anything else, automatically their attention goes elsewhere and you've lost them. You've lost an opportunity. But when it's a general update, I'd say up to 3 things. Nice large font, so 16 font and above. I would use titles that are in a different color or bolded, or at least bolded, so when I'm skimming, I can tell what the topic is and decide if I want to. And one other thing, you may want to include 37 images in your emails. I'm going to caution against that for a whole host of reasons, but real simple, one really nice attention-grabbing picture is enough. When you add multiple pictures, it makes the email way more in terms of file size, and then it may not get to certain inboxes because it goes over that. Number 2, you're kind of taking attention away from all the other content there. And number 3, I don't know, Patrick, if you do this with your emails, but I know plenty of people who the default on their email is do not show images. And so suddenly you're scrolling an email, there's an empty space where an image should be, and then verbiage, empty space, verbiage. You know what? That gets annoying after a while, and you stop scrolling. And you're not going to see those great pictures that you've put in. So you want to be careful about putting in too many pictures. Where do you want to use pictures? On your website, obviously. If you send them to a specific page or an event or program or something great just happened, put those excellent pictures on your website. That's where they belong. But in an email, I'd be careful about adding more than one big image.
And I hope that feels really good to the nonprofits that are listening to this, where if you do have 15 things, Now you only need 3. What a relief it is to know that you don't have to come up with 15 really good pieces of content in one email. And it may encourage you to start more regularly posting or sending things with smaller amounts, so that that communication becomes a little more like, oh, well, this is a nice little piece of information that I don't have to read forever. There's now you've got that 15 broken up into maybe 5 emails or 6 emails rather than one giant one, which encourages you to say, hey, what else can I do to make value or entertainment or be interesting to somebody in their inbox rather than this mundane 97 piece link. So I hope it makes you feel better knowing that you don't have to do as much, because doing more is actually hurting you in the long run when it comes to email communication.
Make sure you tell that to your boss on the board when they suddenly, hey, what just happened? Where's all the stories? You have all the stories. Remember that you can spread out stories on email, website, printed materials, direct mail appeals, annual reports, quarterly reports, at events. You've got a million ways to spread out the stories. You don't have to throw everything into an email, because I except for your very, very dedicated supporters who do want to read 9 different stories, you're not moving the needle with a very long email, which has too many things in it. You want to move the needle, keep it short and simple. Kiss.
And those individuals who want the multifaceted, multi-story pieces are going to go and seek them out anyway, because they're super fun. So the other thing too is, if you need to tell your board or your bosses that you're reducing the amount of content you're sending out, let them know where across the interwebs that they're also going to find these things, and add those together. And I bet it's exponentially more than just a single email, right? We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on this blog, this blog. All of a sudden now, we're reducing the email content because we've got so many more things. And all of a sudden that number skyrockets. Like, whoa, you are doing a really good job. And then you can pat yourself on the back and get a raise. And then you tell them to shut up and stop yelling.
Nonprofits give raises?
Rumor has it that that's a thing back in the day, or it's a fantasy that I've read about, and that I'm just going to make sure that I.
No, listen, what you said is 100% accurate, because at the end of the day, your audience isn't only on email. Your audience is all over the place. You have audiences who just want to have direct mail. They're not online. You have other audiences that are only Facebook, only Twitter, only Instagram, only TikTok. So you want to reach everybody with the stories that matter to that audience on that specific platform, and therefore spread it out. Spread the love.
This is why you need to grab and get on the mailing list of your daily dose of nonprofit. You need to connect with everybody over at 1832. We could talk about this for like 90 hours. But again, we're not a Joe Rogan podcast, so we don't need to go 3.5 hours. I want to make it intriguing that you actually get subscribers and people who are curious. And if they are, how on earth do they get a hold of you? And how on earth can they connect and say, I need a little bit of a help. I need some daily dose. I need some 1832 in my life. How on earth do they do it?
All right. So 1832communications.com. It's all there on the website. I'm also on LinkedIn and Twitter by my name, Ephraim Gopin. I'm always happy to connect with non-profiteers in the business and learn about the great work you're doing. And this is not a sales pitch. This is just me enjoying meeting people in the sector. I enjoy meeting them, whether it's online or certainly better in person over a cup of coffee or beer. I'm always happy to meet people. I'll pay for the coffee or beer. Let's just sit and talk shop, or talk about anything 80s culture related. I'm good at that with that as well.
I like all of those things, and none more than the time that you've spent with us today. I so appreciate your perspective, your enthusiasm. I appreciate everything that shows up in my inbox 4 days a week to give me like what's going on in the nonprofit realm of either communications or events or something like that. And there is always something funny at the end. Either it's a funny tweet or a funny meme that you find on the interwebs, or somebody finds hilarious, which I then find hilarious, because I think basically we have the same brain of humor. So I appreciate you. All right. So everybody, thanks so much for listening. Do yourself a favor, click on all the links. Thank you so much for being a guest on the official Do Good Better podcast.
It was my pleasure, Patrick. Thank you. And to all the nonprofiteers who are out there listening, I'm sending you big hugs. I know how crazy your end is. You're going to do awesome.
Preach and preach. See you next time.